You're telling me humans drink poison for fun? The Zalaxian delegates' crystalline appendages trembled in horror, causing tiny rainbow refractions to dance across the Galactic Council chamber walls. "Oh, that's nothing," replied Ambassador Thompson with a dismissive wave. "Sometimes we deliberately eat food that causes chemical burns to our mouth tissue. We call it spicy. It's quite popular." The resulting screech from the assembled alien delegates nearly shattered every transparent surface in the chamber. Thompson fought to keep a straight face as several species simultaneously engaged their emergency environmental shields. "Order! Order in the chamber!" The Grand Arbiter, a gelatinous mass of neural tissue floating in a hovering containment field, pulsed an angry shade of magenta. "We are here to discuss the recent findings regarding Sol 3's environmental classification, not to spread scandalous rumors about its dominant species' recreational activities." Thompson couldn't help but smirk. After decades of being dismissed as a primitive backwater species, humanity was finally getting the galaxy's attention. All it took was one very thorough environmental survey team actually bothering to study Earth properly, instead of just doing a cursory scan from orbit. The Arbiter's containment field bobbed closer to the central podium. "The evidence submitted by the Galactic Survey Corps is disturbing. The original classification of Earth as a Class 8 death world was, it seems, grossly inadequate." "With respect, your gelatinousness," Thompson interjected, "we've been trying to tell you this for years. Did anyone listen when we explained about Australia? The box jellyfish? The inland taipan? The cone snails? The platypus?" Yes, the Arbiter wobbled dismissively. "We assumed your species was simply attempting to appear more formidable through exaggeration. It's a common psychological defense mechanism among species from harsh environments." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a rotating image of Earth. Red highlight markers began appearing rapidly across its surface, each indicating a particular environmental hazard or deadly species. "However," the Arbiter continued, its mass now pulsing an anxious yellow-green, "the latest survey has revealed that your world contains no less than 57,000 species capable of causing death or serious injury to standard galactic citizens. Your planet harbors organisms that can kill through neurotoxins, hemotoxins, cytotoxins, myotoxins, and several varieties of venom that our xenobiologists are still trying to classify." "Don't forget the plants," Thompson added helpfully. "Some of those can kill you just by touching them. We've got trees that shoot poison thorns, vines that strangle large animals, and flowers that cause chemical burns. Oh, and there's this lovely little plant called the jimpy that causes pain so severe that documented cases show victims begging for death and animals throwing themselves off cliffs." Several delegates promptly engaged their emergency translocation devices and vanished from the chamber. The Arbiter's containment field wavered. "Yes, thank you for that additional context, Ambassador. The survey team also noted that your planet experiences regular geological upheavals, extreme temperature variations, and atmospheric events capable of destroying entire settlements." "You mean earthquakes, volcanoes, and tornadoes?" "Yeah, we build cities right next to those. Sometimes on top of them. Las Vegas is basically a monument to humanity's stubborn refusal to accept that building a major metropolitan area in the middle of a deadly desert is a bad idea." More delegates disappeared. The Arbiter's color shifted to a deep blue of concern. "But perhaps most alarming," it continued, "is your species' apparent inability to recognize or respond appropriately to mortal danger. The survey team observed humans deliberately seeking out hazardous situations for entertainment." Thompson grinned. "Oh, you must mean extreme sports." "Yeah, we jump out of perfectly good aircraft, climb frozen waterfalls, swim with apex predators, and race vehicles at lethal velocities. Some people run ultramarathons in Death Valley. That's a place so hostile we named it Death Valley, and people still go there for fun." The chamber erupted into chaos. The remaining delegates began shouting, fleeing, or attempting to propose immediate quarantine measures for the entire Sol system. "Additionally," Thompson raised his voice over the pandemonium, "we regularly consume substances that we know full well might kill us. Sometimes we ferment perfectly good drinks until they become toxic, then age them for decades because we think it makes them taste better. We call it fancy alcohol, and charge obscene amounts of money for it." The Arbiter's containment field sparked with static. "Ambassador Thompson, are you suggesting that humans intentionally poison their own biochemistry for status symbols?" "Oh, absolutely. We also deliberately expose ourselves to harmful radiation to change our skin color, inject botulinum toxin into our faces to look younger, and sometimes we just eat things on a dare knowing they might make us violently ill. Enough! The Arbiter's mass whirled into a frenzied spiral. In light of this testimony and the survey team's findings, I hereby declare Earth to be reclassified as a Class 14 Deathworld, effective immediately. Furthermore, I am implementing Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. All trade routes within 50 light-years of the Sol system are to be rerouted. Warning beacons will be placed at all standard approach vectors. Thompson cleared his throat. About those warning beacons, you might want to make them really sturdy. Humans tend to collect strange objects we find in space, usually out of curiosity, or because we think they'll look nice on a shelf somewhere. The Arbiter's translated response came through as an incomprehensible string of error messages. Also, Thompson continued cheerfully, you should know we've already established colonies on Mars. Yes, the frozen radioactive desert planet. And we're planning settlements on Venus and Europa. We're quite excited about Europa, actually, since it combines two of our favorite things: deadly pressure differentials and exploring dark places that probably contain unknown horrors. The chamber fell silent except for the soft whir of environmental systems and the occasional pop of another delegate emergency translocating away. Your species, the Arbiter finally managed, colonizes other death worlds for fun? Well, they're not going to colonize themselves, are they? Thompson shrugged. Besides, Mars is practically a resort compared to parts of Earth. Did I mention we have these lovely little organisms called brain-eating amoebae that live in some of our warm freshwater? They're exactly what they sound like. The Arbiter's containment field briefly flickered out of existence, then re-engaged with a backup power source. This changes everything. Our models for galactic expansion and species interaction never accounted for humans? Thompson suggested helpfully. For a species that not only survives Class 14 conditions but appears to thrive on them and actively seeks to recreate them elsewhere. The Arbiter's mass had compressed into a tight, worried ball. The implications for galactic society are staggering. Thompson smiled diplomatically. If it makes you feel any better, we're really quite friendly. We just happen to be friendly while also being essentially unkillable by most conventional standards. In fact, we've developed this delightful tradition called tourism, where we travel to new places, specifically to experience novel ways of almost dying. Ambassador, the Arbiter pulsed weakly. Are you attempting to suggest that your species views the galaxy's most hazardous environments as vacation destinations? Oh yes, the more dangerous the better. We'll probably start offering guided tours of Earth to adventurous aliens soon. Very safe, mostly. We'll make sure to keep them away from the really dangerous stuff, like the Australian wildlife, the Portuguese man-o'-war, and the annual Black Friday sales events. The Arbiter's translation matrix briefly output what appeared to be the xenobiological equivalent of a keyboard smash before recomposing itself. This session is adjourned. I need to process this information, and possibly update my will. As the chamber rapidly emptied, Thompson gathered his notes and prepared to return to the human embassy. He had to admit this had gone even better than expected. The galaxy was finally starting to understand what they were dealing with when it came to humans. He made a mental note to wait at least a few cycles before mentioning humanity's latest research into faster-than-light travel. The galaxy probably wasn't ready to learn that humans had looked at the fundamental laws of physics and decided they were more like guidelines, really. As he walked out, he passed a group of junior xenobiologists huddled over a datapad, watching human entertainment videos with a mixture of horror and fascination. They call this one parkour, one whispered. They literally jump between tall structures for entertainment. That's nothing, another replied. Look up something called free solo climbing. They scale vertical rock faces thousands of meters high with no safety equipment. For fun. What's wrong with them? A third asked in terrified wonder. Thompson couldn't help but interject as he passed. Wrong with us? Nothing at all. We're just very good at turning survival into an extreme sport. You should see what we do with cheese rolling. He left them frantically searching their databases, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, a xenopsychology researcher was about to have either the best or worst day of their career. Probably both. The next morning, Thompson arrived at his office to find 17 urgent messages from various galactic species requesting information about Earth's most dangerous locations. Apparently, the galaxy's most adventurous thrill-seekers had decided that any planet capable of producing humans must be worth visiting. He sighed and began drafting a response, making sure to emphasize that while yes, swimming with great white sharks was technically possible, perhaps they'd like to start with something a bit tamer, like volcano boarding, or wingsuit flying, or competitive eating competitions. On second thought, maybe he'd just send them all to Australia. If they survived that, they'd be ready for the real challenges, like Black Friday shopping at Walmart. 2 weeks later, Thompson found himself giving a presentation to the newly formed Galactic Extreme Tourism Safety Board, which had been hastily assembled after discovering that 17 different species had already started booking unregulated Earth adventure tours. And this, Thompson pointed to a holographic image of people running down a steep hill chasing a wheel of cheese, is considered a relatively mild human sporting event. A Vkr'lakian representative raised 3 of their sensory stalks. Clarification requested. They pursue a fermented dairy product down a hazardous incline. Why? Tradition mostly, Thompson replied. Though the winner does get to keep the cheese. The cheese they just threw down a hill? Exactly. It's quite valuable, actually. We age it for years before rolling it down the hill. The Vkr'lakian's translator produced several seconds of static before giving up entirely. But that's not why I called this meeting, Thompson continued, switching to a new hologram. We need to discuss the recent incident at the Australian Wildlife Sanctuary. Several board members visibly recoiled. The incident in question had made headlines across 17 sectors after a group of Proximan tourists had attempted to befriend a cassowary, having apparently misunderstood the meaning of the warning sign that read, "Approach ill death." In their defense, Thompson added, they assumed we were exaggerating. Most species do at first. They tend to forget that humans label things as deadly only after extensive first-hand experience with said deadliness. Is it true? A Meridian observer asked, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety, that your species designated this particular avian as world's most dangerous bird and then proceeded to build tourist facilities near its habitat? Oh yes, we even sell plush toy versions in the gift shop. Speaking of which, we need to discuss the gift shop incident. The board collectively shuddered. The gift shop incident had occurred when a Centaurian diplomatic team attempted to consume the entirely decorative bush tucker display, mistaking the preserved funnel-web spiders and blue-ringed octopi for local delicacies. In light of these events, Thompson continued, pulling up a new holographic display, I've prepared some suggested guidelines for extraterrestrial tourism on Earth. The list materialized in the air. Earth Tourism Safety Guidelines. Initial draft. 1. All warning signs should be assumed to be literal understatements. 2. If humans label something as extremely dangerous, treat it as certain death. 3. If humans appear casual about a lethal threat, this does not mean the threat is minor. It means humans have simply normalized that particular variety of deadly. 4. Hold my beer is a recognized emergency phrase that should trigger immediate evacuation protocols. 5. Tourist activities labeled as traditional or cultural should be assumed to have a minimum 15% historical fatality rate. 6. Gift shops are for purchasing items, not sampling them. 7. If a human describes something as mostly harmless, prepare for immediate catastrophic danger. 8. The phrase, "watch this," should activate all available safety force fields. A Neptunian delegate raised their vapor tendril. Query. These guidelines suggest that humans intentionally situate recreational facilities in proximity to lethal hazards? Oh, absolutely, Thompson beamed. We call them national parks. They're some of our most popular tourist destinations. We even made camping rules specifically because humans kept trying to feed the bears. You have rules because your species was attempting to provide nutrition to apex predators? Had to. Turns out people really want to give sandwiches to bears. No idea why. We also had to make rules about not trying to pet the buffalo, take selfies with moose, or climb into active geysers. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Your species, the Neptunians' vapor cloud swirled in distress, required official regulations to prevent them from entering boiling sulfuric vents. To be fair, Thompson shrugged, the signs only went up after the third incident. We tend to operate on a find-out basis when it comes to natural hazards. A Jovian representative, their quantum probability field fluctuating wildly, spoke up. Our preliminary tourism studies indicate that 63% of human recreational activities would qualify as military survival training in most civilized systems. Only 63%? Thompson frowned. You must not have included our winter sports, or competitive eating, or that thing where people chase wheels of cheese down hills. Actually, we should probably add a section about cheese-related activities to the guidelines. Ambassador, the Vkr'lak interrupted, all sensory stalks now fully extended in alarm. Our research teams have discovered something called ghost pepper eating contests. Please tell me this is not what it appears to be. Thompson's grin widened. Oh, that's just the beginning. Wait until you hear about Carolina Reapers. We literally engineered peppers to be more dangerous, then turned eating them into a competition. We even made ice cream out of them. The quantum probability field of the Jovian representative collapsed entirely, requiring emergency stabilization. Perhaps, the Neptunians suggested, their vapor cloud now a distinct shade of worry purple. We should establish a graduated system of tourist experiences, beginning with minimal danger and slowly progressing to more human levels of risk. Excellent idea, Thompson agreed. We can start them with something simple, like ziplining or bungee jumping. Ambassador, the Vkr'lak interrupted. Our species considers voluntary falling to be a sign of severe psychological disturbance. Right. How about surfing then? Nice gentle introduction to Earth's recreational near-death experiences. You mean the activity involving balancing on a primitive board while being propelled by massive dihydrogen monoxide waves toward mineral formations? When you put it that way, it does sound a bit intense, Thompson conceded. What about something really basic, like mini-golf? The room relaxed slightly. Though I should mention that most mini-golf courses are near water hazards and some have live alligators. The relaxation immediately evaporated. Moving on, Thompson quickly changed the hologram. Let's discuss the proposed warning system for human social gatherings. We'll need special protocols for events like Black Friday sales, wedding receptions, and any sporting event involving teams from Philadelphia. As the meeting devolved into chaos once again, Thompson couldn't help but feel proud. Sure, humanity might be terrifying to the rest of the galaxy, but at least they were terrifying in an entertaining way. And if the preliminary tourist booking numbers were any indication, the galaxy's thrill-seekers were just getting started. He made a mental note to warn the Australian Tourism Board. They were going to need a lot more danger death within signs, and possibly a bigger gift shop. 1 month into the Earth Tourism Initiative, Thompson found himself standing before the Galactic Council yet again, this time to address what the Arbiter was calling concerning developments in cross-species cultural exchange. To be clear, Thompson said, gesturing to the holographic incident report floating beside him. Nobody could have predicted that the Andromedans would become addicted to hot sauce. The Arbiter's gelatinous mass swirled in agitation. They've begun establishing underground trading networks for something called Dave's Insanity Sauce. Well, yes, Thompson admitted, though I'm more concerned about them discovering the existence of Double Death Sauce and Satan's Blood. The names alone might trigger diplomatic incidents. That's not the only problem, a Proximan delegate interjected. Our species has become obsessed with something called parkour after watching human entertainment videos. We've had 17 hospitalizations this week alone. Thompson winced. In retrospect, we probably should have mentioned that humans have unusually robust skeletal structures compared to most species. Perhaps we should restrict access to extreme sports videos until we can establish proper training programs. Training programs? The Arbiter pulsed an alarming shade of puce. You intend to teach other species how to engage in these suicidal activities? Well, they're going to try them anyway. We figured we might as well show them how to do it properly. Besides, some species have turned out to be surprisingly good at certain human sports. The Centaurians, for instance, have taken to competitive rock climbing quite naturally. Something about their ability to secrete adhesive compounds. That's not the point! The Arbiter's containment field crackled with static. We've received reports that some humans are now offering unofficial extreme tourism packages. Something called Ultimate Earth Challenge Tours. Ah, Thompson cleared his throat. Yes, we've been trying to shut those down. Apparently some enterprising tour operators decided to combine multiple high-risk activities into single packages. The Ultimate Aussie Adventure includes crocodile wrestling, box jellyfish dodging, and something they're calling Casual Encounter with a Brown Snake. A Meridian observer's crystalline form vibrated in horror. Define casual encounter. According to the brochure, participants get to experience authentic Australian wildlife interaction by attempting to remove a highly venomous snake from their hotel room using traditional human methods. Which are? A beer carton and a pair of thongs. Though I should clarify that in Australia, thongs refer to what most humans call flip-flops, not, well, never mind. The chamber erupted into concerned murmuring. But that's not even the most pressing issue, Thompson continued. We need to discuss the recent incident at the International Hot Pepper Festival. The arbiter's mass compressed anxiously. The event where 17 different species attempted to compete in human spice tolerance contests? The same. Turns out most species don't share our ability to recover from capsaicin exposure. Who knew? Though I have to admit, watching a Vkr'lak try to eat a Carolina Reaper was educational. Their entire sensory cluster had to be replaced. Yes, but they won 3rd place, Thompson pointed out. They're quite proud of that, actually. They've already registered for next year's competition. This is precisely the problem. The Arbiter's containment field pulsed with emphasis. Species across the galaxy are beginning to emulate human risk-taking behaviors. We've received reports of Neptunians attempting something called volcano surfing. Really? Thompson perked up. How did they manage that? Their vapor form should make it quite challenging to maintain board contact with the... He caught himself. I mean, how terribly dangerous and concerning. A Jovian representative's quantum field fluctuated. Our statistical models suggest that if this trend continues, galactic insurance rates will become astronomically high within 3 standard cycles. Speaking of insurance, Thompson interjected. We should probably discuss the waiver system we're implementing for the upcoming Running of the Bulls event. Several alien species have expressed interest in participating. The Arbiter's translation matrix briefly emitted what sounded like a muffled scream. Don't worry, Thompson assured them. We're taking every reasonable safety precaution. We've even prepared special warning signs in 47 different languages explaining that, yes, these are actual Earth bulls, and no, they cannot be reasoned with. Perhaps, the Arbiter suggested weakly, we should consider revoking Earth's tourism licenses entirely. You could try, Thompson shrugged. But I should mention that 3 different species have already started constructing their own unofficial extreme sports facilities based on human designs. The Andromedans have built something they're calling Ultra Mega Death Skate Park Alpha. We're not entirely sure what happens there, but the screaming can be heard from orbit. The chamber fell into resigned silence. Look on the bright side, Thompson offered cheerfully. At least nobody has discovered human competitive eating competitions yet. A Proximan delegate's sensor arrays twitched. Competitive eating? Oh yes, humans sometimes compete to see who can consume the most food in a limited time. The current hot dog eating record is 76 in 10 minutes. The delegate's translator produced a sound like a dying computer. Your species turns basic biological functions into extreme sports? Absolutely. We even have competitions for things like speed drinking water, though that one's actually quite dangerous. Turns out you can die from drinking too much water too quickly. We had to add warning labels and everything. You required warning labels to prevent your species from dying by consuming too much of a vital survival resource? The delegate's sensory arrays drooped in defeat. To be fair, Thompson noted, we have to put warning labels on pretty much everything. Did you know we had to specifically tell people not to eat Tide Pods? They're these little packets of laundry detergent that apparently look tasty enough that some humans needed explicit instructions not to put them in their mouths. The Arbiter's containment field flickered. Ambassador Thompson, I believe we need to establish a new subcommittee specifically to handle human-inspired galactic safety concerns. Excellent idea, though you should know that humans have a saying, safety third. What's first and second? Looking cool and holding my beer, obviously. As the chamber descended into chaos once again, Thompson made a mental note to delay mentioning humanity's latest extreme sport invention, combining skydiving with solving Rubik's Cubes while live-streaming the whole thing. The galaxy clearly wasn't ready for that level of human innovation yet, though he had to admit, watching the Andromedans attempt to recreate human extreme sports was proving to be surprisingly entertaining. He just hoped they didn't discover parkour fight clubs anytime soon. Or cheese rolling. The galaxy definitely wasn't ready for cheese rolling. 6 months into what was now being called the Terran tourism crisis, Thompson stood before a hastily assembled emergency response committee, trying to explain humanity's latest contribution to galactic chaos. So you see, he gestured to a holographic display showing various sporting events. When we said humans enjoy watching vehicle races, we should have been more specific about the types of vehicles involved. The committee chairman, a Regellian with an impressive array of sensory tentacles, all currently twisted into stress knots, gestured at the display. You mean to tell me that humans race everything with an engine? Oh, not just things with engines, Thompson clarified helpfully. We also race things without engines. Down hills usually, sometimes on ice, occasionally on fire. On fire? Mostly on purpose, Thompson assured them. Though I admit the Andromedans may have misinterpreted our Red Bull soapbox race videos slightly. In their defense, we weren't clear enough that the vehicles aren't supposed to explode. A holoscreen activated, showing footage of what appeared to be a massive pileup of bizarre alien vehicles, many of which seemed to be deliberately designed to disintegrate upon impact. They've created something they're calling Extreme Maximum Destruction Derby, Thompson explained. It's like our Demolition Derby, but with antimatter engines and questionable physics. The chairman's tentacles tied themselves into an entirely new kind of stress knot. And this appeals to them? Oh, enormously. They've already scheduled 3 more events, though we really need to discuss their interpretation of monster truck rallies. Turns out monster truck translates idiomatically in their language to vehicular nightmare beast, and, well... He gestured to another holoscreen, showing what appeared to be a 100-meter-tall mechanical monstrosity, with entirely too many wheels and what looked suspiciously like plasma cannons. That's not even the biggest problem, interjected a vegan representative, their bioluminescent patches flashing distress patterns. Have you seen what the Proximans are doing with human extreme cooking shows? Thompson winced. Ah, yes, the Interstellar Iron Chef incident. In our defense, we didn't expect them to take cooking with fire quite so literally, or to interpret flame-grilled as a challenge. The holoscreen shifted to show footage of what appeared to be a cooking competition taking place inside an active plasma stream. Though you have to admit, Thompson added, they're getting quite creative with their presentation. I didn't even know you could caramelize quantum strings. The chairman's tentacles had progressed beyond stress knots and were now attempting to tie themselves into Klein bottles. This brings us to the matter of the Centaurian Ultimate Extreme Sports Festival they're planning. Oh dear, Thompson sighed. What have they combined this time? According to their permit application, underwater base jumping, zero-gravity parkour, antimatter surfing, and something they're calling multi-dimensional chess boxing. Multi-dimensional chess boxing? Thompson actually looked impressed. That's a new one, though I should point out that regular chess boxing is already quite dangerous enough without adding extra spatial dimensions. Chess... boxing? The vegan representative's bioluminescence flickered in confusion. It's exactly what it sounds like. Competitors alternate between playing chess and punching each other in the face. It's a real sport. We invented it because apparently regular chess wasn't stressful enough. The room fell into stunned silence. But that's not even the most pressing concern, Thompson continued. We need to discuss what happened when the Andromedans discovered human energy drinks. The chairman's tentacles went limp with dread. Surely it can't be worse than the hot sauce addiction epidemic. Well, Thompson pulled up another holographic display. It turns out they've started combining various human energy drinks with their own biochemical stimulants. They're calling it Quantum Monster Ultra Death Surge. Side effects include temporary omniscience, involuntary time travel, and something their medical experts are describing as tasting colors in the 5th dimension. They're intentionally consuming this? Oh yes, they've even started underground energy drink fighting tournaments. Apparently, if you drink enough of their new mixtures, you can briefly perceive all possible realities simultaneously. They're calling it Ultimate Maximum Caffeine Combat. The winner is whoever can still perceive linear time after 10 rounds. The chairman's translation matrix produced what sounded like a mechanical sob. But look on the bright side, Thompson offered. At least they haven't discovered human energy drink mixing competitions yet. You know, where people combine different energy drinks with various sodas and other stimulants to create what we lovingly call heart attack in a cup. Your species, the vegan representative's bioluminescence had shifted to a shade of pure existential dread, intentionally creates beverages designed to cause cardiac arrest? Not designed to, exactly. It's more of a fun side effect. Though I should mention that some humans have started rating energy drinks based on how much they make you feel like you can see through time. Is that possible? Only if you drink enough of them. though we had to add warning labels specifically telling people not to drink more than 3 in one day. Apparently some humans saw that as more of a challenge than a warning. The chairman's tentacles had begun stress shedding. Perhaps we should consider implementing galaxy-wide beverage control regulations. You could try, Thompson shrugged. But I should mention that humans have a long history of turning prohibited substances into underground sporting events. Did you know we once had actual rat poison in our energy drinks? Officially, I mean. It was an approved ingredient. The room's artificial gravity briefly failed as the facility's AI had what appeared to be an existential crisis. Though if you really want to be concerned, Thompson added, you should know that humans sometimes mix energy drinks with something called pre-workout supplements. The resulting mixture is basically weaponized motivation with a side of possible dimensional displacement. And humans consume this voluntarily? Usually before going to lift heavy objects repeatedly for no practical purpose other than to prove we can. We call it getting swole. As the committee descended into various species-specific expressions of horror, Thompson decided this probably wasn't the best time to mention CrossFit, or the fact that some humans had started combining parkour with competitive eating. The galaxy clearly needed time to process one level of human extremes before being introduced to the next. Though he had to admit, he was kind of looking forward to seeing what the Andromedans would do once they discovered the existence of ultramarathons. You know what I find absolutely hilarious about humans? Admiral HFY clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among the Vexari. They didn't even try to join the war. His first officer, Lieutenant Commander Neelix, tilted her headstalks in confusion. Sir, I'm not sure I follow. Isn't that good? One less species to worry about? Oh, sweet summer larva, HFY chittered, his compound eyes gleaming with mirth. You weren't around for first contact with Earth, were you? The bridge of the Vexari flagship. Star Piercer hummed quietly as it maintained its position at the edge of the Sol System's defensive perimeter. The massive view screen showed Earth in the distance, a beautiful blue marble that somehow managed to look both peaceful and suspiciously innocent at the same time. No, sir, I've only read the reports, Neelix admitted, her antennae twitching with curiosity. Reports! HFY burst into the clicking equivalent of laughter. Reports don't do justice to the absolute chaos that is humanity. When we first arrived, they were in the middle of something they called a viral dance challenge. Half their global communication network was dedicated to arguing about whether some dress was blue or gold. The other half was filled with images of small furry creatures they called cats, doing remarkably uncat-like things. That doesn't sound very threatening, sir. Exactly, HFY gesticulated with all 4 arms. That's what makes this so suspicious. These are the same humans who, when we demonstrated our faster-than-light technology, responded by asking if they could strap it to something called a Toyota Corolla, just to see what happens. These are the people who, upon learning about our antimatter weapons, immediately began theorizing about using them to heat something called hot pockets more efficiently. A junior officer at the sensor station cleared his throat. Sir, if I may, I've been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts. They seem to be watching something called reality TV and arguing about someone named Karen on their social media platforms. See? HFY pointed triumphantly. Business as usual. That's what terrifies me. The entire galaxy is at war, and Earth is just continuing like nothing's happening. The Arconian Empire is pushing through the Carina Arm. The Pexalathi Collective is consuming entire star systems, and humans are still posting what they had for breakfast on something called Instagram. Neelix's headstalks drooped slightly. Perhaps they're simply unintelligent. Ha! The Admiral's laugh was sharp enough to make several bridge officers jump. Let me tell you about human intelligence. During first contact, they asked us if our ships ran on something called Windows, and seemed relieved when we said no. Then, one of their hackers managed to rickroll our entire fleet's communication system. We still don't know how they did it. Rick? Roll? Trust me, you don't want to know. The point is, humans are chaos incarnate. They once suggested solving an asteroid crisis by, and I quote, hitting it with another bigger asteroid to assert dominance. And their solution worked. That's not the behavior of an unintelligent species. It's the behavior of a species that operates on cartoon logic and somehow bends reality to make it work. The junior officer at the sensor station suddenly straightened. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual activity from Earth. Define unusual, Zixvac demanded, all four hands gripping his command chair. They're having something called a tick-tock challenge, where they... The officer paused, double-checking his readings. Where they're trying to stack as many chairs as possible? By the first egg, Zixvac whispered. It's worse than I thought. They're up to something. Sir, Neelix ventured carefully. With all due respect, perhaps you're being a bit paranoid. They seem rather preoccupied with their own entertainment. Lieutenant Commander, let me share something with you. During our cultural exchange program, we showed them our most advanced quantum computing device. Do you know what they did? They asked if it could run something called Doom. When we said no, they looked disappointed and said, "Give it time." 2 weeks later, one of their teenagers had somehow made it work. We still don't understand how. The bridge fell silent as everyone contemplated this information. The quiet was broken by another report from the censor officer. Sir, we're detecting increased activity in their academic institutions. What kind of activity? Zixvac demanded. They appear to be having something called a finals week. There's a lot of consumption of a stimulant beverage they call coffee. And, sir, their students are making something called memes about their stress levels. Zixvac's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Vexari equivalent of nervous tapping. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The galaxy is burning, and they're making jokes about their education system. It's too perfect, too normal. They're planning something, I know it. But what could they possibly be planning? Neelix asked. Our scans show no military buildup, no unusual industrial activity. Their space program is still focused on something called Mars and posting pictures from their Webb telescope. That's just it. It's all too ordinary. Humans don't do ordinary. These are the same people who, when we showed them our gravity manipulation technology, immediately asked if they could use it to make the ultimate bouncy castle. Their scientists once wrote a paper titled, "On the Possibility of Building a Lightsaber," and submitted it to a peer-reviewed journal as a joke, and then actually made a working prototype. A new alert chimed from the sensor station. Sir, they're starting something called Minecraft speedruns on their streaming platforms. Zixvac's compound eyes widened. All hands, battle stations, full shields. Sir. Sir? Neelix looked alarmed. Surely you don't think... Lieutenant Commander, in all my years studying humans, I've learned one crucial thing. The more normal they act, the more worried you should be. When humans get quiet, when they seem to be minding their own business, that's when they're most dangerous. But they're literally just playing games and posting about their daily lives. Exactly. Normal humans would be trying to join the war, offering to help, trying to trade their technology, or at least making memes about the conflict. This level of normalcy can mean only one thing. They're up to something big. As if on cue, another alert sounded. The sensor officer's voice was slightly shaky as he reported. Sir, we're detecting a massive surge in something called Netflix binge-watching? By all that's holy, Zixvac whispered. They're in their final phase of preparation. Sir, Neelix tried again. What exactly do you think they're preparing for? I don't know, and that's what terrifies me. These are the people who, when faced with a problem, will either solve it in the most ridiculous way possible, or turn it into an entertainment opportunity. Sometimes both. Remember the Great Space Debris Crisis of 2189? I've read about it, Neelix nodded. Earth's orbit was becoming dangerously cluttered with old satellites and space junk. Yes, and do you know how they solved it? They turned it into a game. They literally created an app called Space Janitor that let people control small cleanup drones from their phones. They made collecting space debris into a competitive sport with leaderboards and everything. They cleared their entire orbit in 3 months because someone offered a golden vacuum trophy to the winner. The sensor officer interrupted again. Sir, we're now detecting increased activity on their YouTube platform. Many humans are watching something called cat videos and fail compilations. Zixvac's mandibles clicked so fast they almost buzzed. This is it. This is exactly what they do before something big. They distract themselves with mindless entertainment, act completely normal, and then BAM! They do something that defies all logic and reason, and somehow it works perfectly. But what could they possibly do? Neelix asked. The war has been going on for 3 standard years. The greatest military minds in the galaxy are involved. What could Earth possibly contribute that would make a difference? Lieutenant Commander, let me tell you about the time they solved their global warming crisis. They didn't do it through careful environmental planning or advanced technology. No. Someone made a viral video challenging people to plant trees and called it the Green Flex Challenge. They turned environmental restoration into a social media trend. People were literally competing to see who could plant more trees and restore more ecosystems. They solved a planetary crisis through memes and peer pressure. Another alert chimed.
Sir, their internet traffic is showing a massive spike in cooking videos and something called DIY crafts. Oh no, HFY whispered.
They're stress crafting. This is worse than I thought. Stress crafting.
It's something humans do when they're preparing for something big. They cook elaborate meals, make things with their hands, and share the results online. It's like they're gathering their strength, focusing their chaos into creative outlets before releasing it on an unsuspecting universe. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as Earth continued its seemingly innocent activities. More alerts came in. Increased usage of something called Pinterest, a spike in gardening-related searches, and something ominously called sourdough starter revival. Sir, the sensor officer reported, I'm detecting unusual activity in their scientific communities. Define unusual, HFY demanded.
They appear to be writing papers with puns in the titles.
No!
HFY leaped from his chair.
That's how it starts. First, they make science funny, then they do something impossible. Remember the quantum entanglement breakthrough of 2190? The paper was titled Spooky Action at a Distance, No Ghostwriters Involved, and revolutionized instantaneous communication. Just then, all the sensors on the bridge began beeping simultaneously.
The view screen flickered, and for a moment the image of Earth seemed to ripple.
Report, HFY commanded.
Sir, we're detecting... This can't be right, the sensor officer stammered.
Speak, officer! Sir, the humans they've quantum entangled their entire internet? What? Neelix's headstalks went rigid with shock. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be... Oh no, HFY interrupted. Oh, no. They've done it again. While we were watching them post cat videos and make sourdough bread, they were actually creating a planet-wide quantum network. But why? What's the purpose? As if in answer to his question, every screen on the bridge suddenly lit up with the same message. Error 404, war not found. Sir, the communications officer called out.
This message is being broadcast throughout the entire galaxy, through every quantum-entangled device, which is now everything connected to Earth's internet. Which means, HFY began, which means they've created an instantaneous, unblockable, galaxy-wide communication network. Neelix finished.
But why would they? She was interrupted by a new message appearing on the screens. Hey everyone, since we can all talk now, maybe we could try not killing each other. We're starting a galaxy-wide game of Among Us to work out our differences. First round starts in 10 minutes. Loser has to host next year's intergalactic bake-off. The bridge of the Star Piercer fell into stunned silence.
Finally, HFY spoke, his voice a mixture of awe and resignation.
And that, Lieutenant Commander, is why you should always worry when humans get quiet. They don't avoid wars because they're afraid or unintelligent. They avoid wars because they're too busy thinking of ridiculous solutions that shouldn't work but somehow do. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving reports that the Arconian Empire and the Vkr'lak Collective have accepted the invitation to play. They're arguing about who gets to be the imposter first. HFY sank back into his command chair, mandibles clicking in what might have been laughter or hysteria. Of course they are. Because somehow, humanity has just ended a galactic war by turning it into a video game tournament and a cooking show. Should we accept the invitation as well, sir? Neelix asked hesitantly.
Do we have a choice? If we don't, we'll be the only ones still trying to fight while everyone else is playing games and sharing recipes. He straightened in his chair. Send our acceptance, but mark my words. The moment humans start acting normal again, that's when we need to really start worrying. As the Star Piercer's crew began preparing for their first Among Us match, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, looking as innocent as ever. Somewhere on its surface, a teenager was probably already figuring out how to mod the game to include quantum physics puzzles.
while someone else was undoubtedly planning the most elaborate space cake ever conceived for the upcoming intergalactic bake-off. And that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest weapon. Not their military might or technological advancement, but their absolutely ridiculous ability to turn anything, even a galactic war, into an opportunity for games, memes, and competitive baking. The universe would never be the same, but at least it would be more entertaining. 3 standard months after what became known as the Great Gaming Armistice, Admiral Vkr'lak found himself in an entirely new kind of crisis. "Sir?" Lieutenant Commander Neelix reported, her head stalks twitching with barely contained amusement. "The humans have announced the theme for next week's intergalactic bake-off round." Vkr'lak's mandibles clicked nervously. "What is it this time?" "Fusion cuisine, literally. They want us to incorporate actual fusion reactions into our baking." "By the first egg," Vkr'lak muttered. "How do they expect us to—" "Oh, they've already posted a tutorial," Neelix interrupted, scrolling through her quantum-entangled tablet. "Apparently someone called Grammy Johnson has figured out how to use controlled microscopic fusion reactions to perfectly caramelize sugar. She says it gives the creme brulee a little extra zing." The Admiral's compound eyes flickered in what his crew had learned to recognize as his humans are being humans again expression. "Please tell me that's the most disturbing news you have for me today." "Well," Neelix's antennae drooped slightly. "The Arconian Empire is demanding a rematch of last week's Among Us tournament. They're claiming the humans had an unfair advantage because they're, quote, naturally sus. And the Vkr'lak Collective has filed a formal complaint about humans introducing something called house rules to the game. Apparently someone convinced them that if you can prove string theory while in the reactor room, it counts as completing your tasks." Vkr'lak leaned back in his command chair, all 4 hands massaging his temples. "How did we go from the brink of galactic war to arguing about game mechanics and baking competitions?" "Actually, sir, I have a theory about that," the science officer, Dr. Katix, chimed in from his station. "I've been studying human psychological patterns, and I believe I've identified their primary weapon." "Their primary weapon is turning everything into a competition or a meme," Vkr'lak stated flatly. "No, sir. Their primary weapon is FOMO." "FOMO?" "Fear of missing out," Dr. Katix explained. "It's a psychological phenomenon that humans weaponized centuries ago against themselves, and now they've unleashed it on the galaxy. Think about it. Who wants to be the only species still fighting when everyone else is having fun playing games and sharing recipes?" Before Vkr'lak could respond, another alert chimed from the communications station. "Sir," the comm officer called out, "Earth is broadcasting something new. They're calling it Space Eurovision." The entire bridge crew turned to watch as the main view screen lit up with an explosion of colors, music, and what appeared to be a Vkr'lak performing a dubstep remix of their species' traditional mating calls, while riding what could only be described as a giant, glitter-covered space hamster. "What? What am I looking at?" Vkr'lak whispered in horror. "According to the broadcast," Neelix read from her tablet, "it's a celebration of galactic culture through the medium of extremely extra musical performances. The humans are encouraging every species to participate. The winners get to host next year's Intergalactic Comic-Con." Do I want to know what a Comic-Con is? Probably not, sir. But the Arconians have already submitted their entry. They're doing something called a K-pop cover with their entire high command. Vkr'lak's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This is getting out of hand. First the gaming tournament, then the baking competition, and now this? What's next?" As if in answer to his question, a new message popped up on every screen. "Upcoming events: Galactic Meme War, Friendly Edition, Interspecies TikTok Challenge, and the first annual Space Olympics, 0G Edition. Yes, the double parentheses are necessary. Fight us." "Sir," Dr. Katix spoke up again, "I should mention that my research team has detected something concerning about Earth's quantum internet. More concerning than the fact that they're turning the entire galaxy into one giant social media platform? They've somehow managed to integrate something called blockchain into the quantum network. They're calling it Space Chain." The Admiral's compound eyes narrowed. "What does it do?" "Near as we can tell, it's primarily being used to trade something called NFTs of famous space battles that never happened, because we're all too busy playing games and baking now." And someone made 1 trillion credits yesterday selling an NFT of what they claim is the exact moment you realized humans had trapped us all in their social media empire. Zixvak's mandibles clicked once, very slowly.
Delete that from the record. Can't, sir. It's on the blockchain. Just then, another alert sounded.
The sensor officer's voice was filled with confusion as he reported. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's direction.
Have they finally revealed their true military might?
Zixvak asked, almost hopefully.
No, sir. They're setting up something called a galaxy-wide LAN party. They say the energy requirements are worth it for zero lag. The Admiral slumped in his chair. You know what the worst part is? Their method of ending the war is actually working. The Vkr'lak Collective's approval ratings are at an all-time high since their leaders started streaming something called Minecraft speedruns. And the Arconian Empire's war budget has been redirected to their new Department of Competitive Gaming and Extreme Baking. Neelix added.
Sir, the comm officer called out again.
Earth is broadcasting. They're challenging the entire galaxy to something called a lip-sync battle. The view screen filled with images of various species attempting to sync their mouth parts to human music with varying degrees of success.
A particularly enthusiastic Arconian was attempting to mouth the words to Baby Shark, while their entire battle fleet formed a synchronized dance routine in the background. Doctor, Zixvak turned to Dr. Katix. In your professional opinion, how long before we completely lose our dignity as a galactic community? Sir, with all due respect, I believe that happened approximately 2 minutes after humans introduced the concept of space memes to the quantum network. Have you seen what the Vkr'lak did with that distracted boyfriend format? They used their entire hive mind to recreate it with stellar phenomena. Another alert chimed.
Sir, Neelix reported, trying to keep her voice steady. Earth has just announced that they're organizing a galactic-wide Secret Santa.
A what?
A gift exchange, sir. The Arconian Empire has already signed up. They're asking if antimatter weapons are an acceptable gift or if that's too last season. Zixvak stared at the view screen, where the lip-sync battle had somehow evolved into a multi-species recreation of something called Thriller. You know what the truly terrifying part is? He said finally. This is probably the most peaceful the galaxy has been in recorded history. Because everyone's too busy trying to perfect their sourdough starter for the bake-off? Neelix suggested. No, because humans have somehow convinced the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy that social media clout is more valuable than military victory. Just then, every screen on the bridge lit up with a new message. Breaking news. Humans announce galactic-wide talent show. Grand prize, the Deed to Alpha Centauri, NFT edition. Yes, they can do that apparently. No, we don't know how they got the rights. Yes, it's legally binding. We checked. Don't ask how. Zixvak watched as his sensor officer immediately began practicing something called juggling with antimatter containment spheres. Lieutenant Commander, he said wearily, please tell me we at least maintained our dignity and didn't sign up for any of these events. Neelix's headstalks twisted in what might have been embarrassment. Well, sir, about that. Our ship's choir has already submitted their application for the talent show. They're planning to perform something called Bohemian Rhapsody while demonstrating quantum superposition. We have a ship's choir? We do now, sir. It was either that or join the Galactic-wide book club. They're reading something called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and we felt that might hit too close to home. Zixvak clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. You know, when I said we should worry when humans get quiet, this isn't quite what I meant. No, sir. I don't think anyone could have predicted they would defeat war with memes and competitive baking. The truly scary part? It's working better than any peace treaty we've ever tried. Another alert chimed. The comm officer's voice was barely containing laughter as he reported. Sir, Earth has just announced they're organizing a galactic-wide Renaissance fair. A what? Apparently, we all have to dress up in human medieval clothing and speak in something called Ye Olde English, while jousting in zero gravity. Zixvak stared at the ceiling of his bridge for a long moment. You know what? Sign us up. At this point, our dignity is already on the blockchain anyway. And so, as the former warships of various species practiced their choreography for the upcoming lip-sync battle, and the Vkr'lak Collective tried to figure out how to make sourdough bread with a hive mind, humanity's greatest victory continued to spread through the galaxy, one meme, game, and baking competition at a time. Somewhere on Earth, someone was probably already planning how to turn the next potential conflict into a reality TV show, And somehow that was more effective than any weapon ever devised. The galaxy would never be the same. But at least everyone's social media game was on point. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Neelix announced, her head stalks vibrating with what could only be described as suppressed laughter. "You need to see this." Admiral Vkr'lak, who had learned to dread those words over the past 6 standard months, reluctantly turned his attention to the main view screen. "Please tell me the Arconians haven't started another TikTok trend." "No, sir." "Well, yes, they have, but that's not what I'm referring to. The humans have just announced their solution to the galactic energy crisis." "The what?" Vkr'lak's mandibles clicked in confusion. "We have an energy crisis?" Apparently, all these galaxy-wide social media events, quantum-entangled gaming sessions, and zero-G baking competitions have been putting a strain on our power grids. And the humans have proposed solving it by turning it into something called a Twitch stream challenge. The Admiral's compound eyes flickered rapidly. "Explain." "They're calling it Power Play, the galaxy's biggest green energy challenge. It's a competition where different species compete to create the most efficient and aesthetically memeable renewable energy solutions." Dr. Katix looked up from his science station. "The worst part is, it's already working. The Vkr'lak Collective has somehow turned their entire hive mind into a quantum computing Bitcoin mining operation that runs on sustainable energy. They're calling it green computing and saving the galaxy through the power of memes." "That doesn't even make sense," Vkr'lak protested. "Sir," Neelix reminded him gently, "we're talking about a species that ended a galactic war with Among Us and competitive baking. I don't think making sense is a priority anymore." Just then, another alert chimed through the bridge. The communications officer's voice was strained as he reported, "Sir, the Arconians have just unveiled their entry in the energy competition. They've somehow turned their entire war fleet into a giant solar power collection array. They're calling it Star Wars, a new power source." "And let me guess," Vkr'lak sighed, "it's already trending on Space Chain?" "#1 trending topic, sir. Although it's currently competing with something called Intergalactic Pet Show, where species are showing off their questionably domesticated space creatures." The view screen switched to show what appeared to be a Vkr'lak drone attempting to teach a small black hole to sit and stay. The black hole was wearing a bow tie. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from Earth again." "Define unusual," Vkr'lak demanded, though he was beginning to think that word had lost all meaning when it came to humans. "They appear to be setting up something called a drive-in movie theater, except it's in space." The view screen shifted to show hundreds of small Earth vessels arranged in a giant 3-dimensional array in orbit around their moon. A massive quantum holographic screen had been erected, currently displaying something called pre-show advertisements. "They're calling it Cinema Among the Stars," Neelix read from her tablet. "First showing is something called Star Wars. The Arconians are already complaining that it's false advertising because it's not about their solar power array." "And let me guess," Vkr'lak clicked his mandibles wearily, "everyone's going to attend?" "The Vkr'lak Collective has already reserved an entire sector for their hive mind to experience what they're calling the ultimate shared viewing experience. They're bringing something called popcorn that they've engineered to pop in vacuum." Before the Admiral could respond, another alert sounded. Dr. Katix's voice was filled with a mixture of awe and horror as he reported, "Sir, you remember how the humans quantum entangled their entire internet?" "How could I forget? It's the reason we're all now competing in galactic baking shows instead of fighting wars." "Well, they've just announced they're upgrading it. They're calling it Web 4.0, now with extra quantum." "What does that even mean?" "According to their announcement, they've figured out how to use quantum superposition to make cat videos exist in multiple states simultaneously, allowing for, quote, infinite cuteness potential." Vkr'lak stared at the view screen, where the space drive-in was now showing previews for something called Interstellar, which was causing numerous species to argue about the accuracy of its black hole physics in the quantum-entangled comments section. "You know what's truly terrifying," he mused. 6 months ago, we were all ready to destroy each other over resources, territory, and power. Now we're arguing about movie physics and competing to see who can make the most environmentally friendly memes." "Speaking of competitions," Neelix interjected, "the results from last week's intergalactic bake-off are in." "Do I want to know?"
The Vkr'lak collective won with their quantum superposition souffle. It apparently exists in a state of both perfectly risen and collapsed until you observe it. The judges called it Schrodinger's dessert. Just then, every screen on the bridge lit up with a new announcement. Breaking news. Humans introduce space fantasy football. Like regular fantasy football, but with actual spaceships. Teams now accepting applications. Warning, may involve actual space dragons. Yes, we made those. No, we won't explain how. Yes, they breathe fire in vacuum. Physics? Never heard of her. Sir, the censor officer reported. Our entire engineering department has just submitted their application to join the league. They're calling themselves the Quantum Cowboys, and their logo is a space cowboy riding a wavelength function. HFY rubbed his temples with all four hands.
Remember when we thought the humans were suspiciously quiet? I'm starting to miss those days. Oh, that reminds me, Neelix chirped. Earth has just announced they're organizing a galactic-wide silent disco. A what? It's like a regular disco, but everyone wears quantum-entangled headphones and dances in silence. They're holding it in the asteroid belt. The Arconians have already started practicing their moves. Apparently, their high command is very interested in something called the robot. The Admiral watched as the view screen showed various species attempting to dance in zero gravity, while asteroids were being transformed into giant disco balls. Doctor, he turned to Dr. Katix. In your professional opinion, is there any way to return to normal galactic civilization? Sir, I believe this is our new normal. The humans have essentially turned the entire galaxy into what they call an extremely extra-social media party, and everyone is too entertained to go back to war. Another alert chimed. Sir, the comm officer reported, trying to keep a straight face. Earth has just announced they're starting a galactic-wide book club and a cooking show. They're calling it Read It and Eat, a journey through galactic cuisine and literature. Let me guess, HFY sighed. We have to cook dishes inspired by the books we read? Yes, sir. First book is The War of the Worlds. The humans say they picked it for irony. The Vkr'lak are already working on a recipe for invasion souffle with peace treaty sauce. The Admiral stared at his bridge crew, all of whom were trying very hard to look professional, while clearly hiding their excitement about the upcoming events. You know what the real irony is? He finally said. We spent centuries advancing our weapons technology, developing battle strategies and preparing for war. And in the end, we were defeated not by superior firepower, but by cat videos, baking competitions, and the inexplicable human ability to turn everything into a trending topic. Don't forget the space dragons, sir, Neelix added helpfully. How could I? They keep photobombing our official fleet photographs. Just then, every screen on the bridge lit up with yet another announcement. Coming soon, Galactic Eurovision featuring special guest judge, the Quantum Superposition Cat. Yes, it's both alive and dead. No, that's not animal cruelty. Yes, it can sing. No, we don't know how. Yes, its songs are already trending on Space Chain. HFY looked at his crew, who were all trying to hide their excitement about the upcoming events. He clicked his mandibles in resignation. Lieutenant Commander, please tell me we at least maintained some dignity in all this. Neelix's headstalks twisted apologetically. Well, sir, our ship's choir has already submitted their audition tape. They're performing a quantum-harmonized version of Take Me Home, Country Roads, while demonstrating string theory through interpretive dance. We really do have a ship's choir now, don't we? Yes, sir. They're calling themselves the Quantum Harmonics. They have merchandise. And so, as the galaxy prepared for its next round of impossibly entertaining events, and various species argued about whether space dragons should be allowed in fantasy football leagues, humanity's cultural victory continued to spread through the cosmos, one viral trend at a time. Somewhere on Earth, someone was probably already planning the next big thing. Perhaps the Great Galactic Baking Show, Time Travel Edition, or Quantum Got Talent. And somehow, that was keeping the peace better than any treaty ever could. The universe would never be the same. But at least everyone's social media feed was absolutely lit. The end.